Do you love the idea of personal growth but find the practice of it exhausting?
We get it.
We're Brandon and Megan Giggling, growth coaches with the mission to put the personal back in personal growth.
If you want a new way of growing into the next version of you without the frustration, guilt, and overwhelm, you're in the right place.
It's time to rethink your growth journey and make it into something that works for you.
You in?
Welcome to Growth Reframed.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Growth Reframed. Today, it's just me. You're getting me. So let's snuggle in and talk about when things don't go as expected. For me, these past few weeks have been really a great reminder that things do not always go as expected. When you're a planner like I am, this can be a very unwelcome disruption to life. Just in full transparency, the disruptions I've had recently are really actually minor in the grand scheme of things, but nonetheless, they happened and they seem to really throw me off of my game, which is where this episode comes in, because I just feel like it's worth a discussion. So for me, life recently has just felt up in the air. Like for us, work has been really busy. We've had employees unexpectedly being out, illness and other things. There have just been several new hires getting trained. And so while we're also trying to navigate the business's busiest time of year, we're working towards getting people trained and dealing with all of this other stuff. For those of you who don't know yet, Brandon and I operate a healthcare company together in addition to recording this podcast. So there's just a lot that we do together. And anyway, back to this, there's just been a lot of change and growth there at our other job right now. And then, of course, there's just the personal home life stuff going on top of that. Like today, for instance, I'm unexpectedly out of the office because our son is home sick. And last week, our kids were supposed to be in school on Friday. But of course, guess what? On Thursday afternoon, the school canceled Friday because there was such a high absence rate due to just people being out ill. So just when Brandon and I thought we would finally have a Friday together for rest and having fun on his actual birthday, we ended up home with the kids, which, didn't actually coincide with our original plan. It ended up being a great day, but it wasn't what we had planned. We had wanted to do just a day for the two of us and turn into a family day. So as I mentioned, it's just nothing life-shattering, but it is different and unexpected for several weeks of our lives, and it just felt sort of hard for me to navigate all of this. And so with all of that, I was thinking when things don't go as planned, there are actually things that we can expect in all of that and ways to try to keep it together the best we can. So we actually can expect to feel overwhelmed and underprepared when things are not going as we planned out. We can also expect to hear that negative voice in our brains when things are not going how we wanted them to. The other thing we should be able to expect is that we need help. And the last thing that we should be able to expect is that we will get less accomplished. Now, you might be wondering why I just breezed through those. And I'll tell you, because the things that we can do to try to keep it together are the actual fixers of. So with all of those expectations, what do we do? Well, let's look at the first one. So let's take that stress and accept that we're going to have it and make a plan to just find a moment here and there to breathe. For me, this looks like taking 5 minutes to do a little reading while my kids are occupied, or maybe taking a few minutes at work to respond to a friend's text that I've left for hours and hours because I haven't left my desk or done anything else other than work for 3 hours straight. When you remember that you can't do it all, especially when things aren't in their normal state, it's actually easier to allow yourself those sacred moments of rest. And even though everything in us screams to keep going since it's even more stressful than usual, these are the times where those rests are even more crucial. So whether you can take 5 minutes or maybe even 2 hours, I hope you can, but whether that's 5 minutes or 2 hours that you can devote to a little time out, take it. It's going to help you feel less anxious about everything that's going on. So when things feel like they aren't going as planned, our inner voice can take those very moments and use them against us. So you remember I said that we have to expect to hear that negative voice, and we do. And that inner voice can become super negative, reminding us that we should be able to handle it all. And the fact that we can't is just further proof of our failures. And if we understand that times of uncertainty are also times of vulnerability, it can help us recognize and shut down that inner voice quickly and efficiently. these past few weeks when I've started to get overwhelmed, my head kicks into high gear and I create all these failed to-do lists in my mind that are a mile long. And when this happened, I had to reframe those lists. I had to recognize that my brain was just trying to set me up for more panic by listing out all these failures in the form of unfinished to-do lists. And then I had to tell it to Silencio Bruno. I don't know if you guys have watched Luca, but that is a great kids movie and probably something that we should all hear too when our brains are kicking into this negative self-talk thing. Silencio Bruno is just the telling your voice in your head to shut up. So that's what I'm doing here. I've had to actively recreate those same lists that I'm talking about to something more manageable. So I've actually taken the long lists that are in my head telling me I'm such a failure because these are the millions of things that I haven't been done, and condensed them down to only the things that matter most for right now. And then I've written them out with paper and pen to help reset my brain to realize that all the other stuff is just noise, really only there to distract me and worry me more. If you can relate to all of this, I encourage you to write out lists, feelings, or anything else that your brain is flooding you with, and then sort through it with a new written plan of what's truly the most helpful to accomplish right now. And remind yourself that the rest will need to wait until these things calm down for a little bit and return to status quo. The other thing we need to concentrate on is when things are not going as we thought they would be, asking for help. I get it. It feels like more evidence of your inability to cope if you have to ask for help. But once again, we need to ask ourselves what the truth is and separate that from our inner voice and all of its lies. I also personally understand how easy it is to talk yourself into holding on to things because it's actually harder to explain to someone how to help. It can just feel easier and faster to do it ourselves. I am the actual queen of this, but it's something I am trying to work on. Asking for help is a skill, and if we're ever going to get better at asking, we need to ask. And as we continue to enlist others for help and advice and support, it becomes easier and more natural to do it. It's also really important to note here that you may struggle in one area, but not as much as another for this. I am almost always able to ask for help at home, although I had to practice a lot to get there, but I definitely struggle at work to tell anyone that I need help. And it's that feeling of burdening someone else when they're already stressed, so I just don't want to do it. I don't want to add to their stress. And instead, it feels better for me to keep on keeping on and not ask for guidance or for someone to take something off of my plate. So while I don't yet have this figured out, I do think that recognition, at least, is an important first step for me, and it might be for you too. The last thing I want to mention is just that we need to manage our expectations of ourselves. This is always true, but it becomes even more important when things are going crazy and aren't going as we would have liked or expected. We cannot possibly expect ourselves to continue at the level that we normally do when there are issues going around and going on in our lives. We have to allow ourselves time and space to deal with that out of the ordinary stuff that's happening, which also means we will have less time to be accomplishing what we normally can. We have to let ourselves off the hook a little bit, which can be like super hard and frustrating for us when we're built in such a way that we expect ourselves to accomplish it all. We have to give ourselves and those around us grace in order to deal with the unexpected that life throws at us. We have to be able to put our families, our health, and our well-being before all the other stuff. It's a hard lesson, but it's definitely necessary. Guys, if you find yourself in a place right now where things just aren't going as you had hoped, know that I'm right there with you. I am learning, I'm growing, and I'm adjusting, and I want this for you too. Thanks for listening to my solo episode today. We will see you next time. Love you, friends.
Thanks for listening to Growth Reframed. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. We would love to connect with you, so shoot us a DM on Instagram @GrowthReframed. We love y'all.